This will be a quick tutorial on how to add your email address into Haiku. Having your email address in Haiku is important as it will allow the instructor to send email to you and allow you to receive emails about grades, announcements, and course changes. First, log in to Haiku. Once you are logged in, you can see your home page. In the top right-hand corner, click on My Account. Now scroll down to Primary Email Address. Enter the address you would like to use. Click Save on the bottom left of the screen. You have now entered your email address into Haiku. If you would like to control what emails you receive, you can scroll back up to the top of the screen. Click on Preferences. Check the boxes for the emails you would like to receive. And how frequently you would like to receive them. Now scroll down to the bottom. No, we don't. I'm sorry. And click on Save on the bottom left of the screen. You're all done.